Midnight invasion. My naked alien classmate materialized in my bed. The unexpected arrival. The November rain drummed against the single window of River Chen's studio apartment, creating a rhythm he'd long since learned to study by. At 22, he'd perfected the art of surviving on instant ramen and black coffee during finals week. His engineering textbooks spread across every available surface like an academic explosion. The clock on his microwave blinked 11:47 p.m., and he was 3 problems deep into thermodynamics when the air itself seemed to crack open. It started as a sound, not quite thunder, more like glass singing at a frequency just below hearing. The fluorescent light above his futon flickered, then blazed impossibly bright. River's pencil froze mid-calculation as the space above his bed began to shimmer, reality bending like heat waves over summer asphalt. Violet electricity danced through the distortion, beautiful and terrifying, and then, with a soft sound like a sigh, the universe deposited a completely naked girl onto his rumpled sheets. River's brain short-circuited for exactly 3 seconds. The girl was Maya Xill from his Wednesday quantum mechanics study group. Quiet Maya, who always sat in the back corner, who explained wave functions with patient precision, who he'd never heard raise her voice above a murmur. Except this Maya wasn't wearing the oversized hoodies and jeans he was used to. This Maya wasn't wearing anything at all. Her skin was the color of deep ocean water at twilight, a rich cobalt blue that seemed to shift and shimmer with patterns like waves moving beneath the surface. The overhead light caught on her in strange ways, making her appear almost luminescent, as though she generated her own soft glow from within. Her hair fell past her shoulders in midnight black waves, and her eyes, those same dark eyes he'd caught himself staring at during lectures, were wide with shock and horror. "Oh God," Maya whispered, her voice trembling as she grabbed his comforter and yanked it up to cover herself. Oh God, this wasn't supposed to happen." River stood frozen by his desk, thermodynamics completely forgotten. His mouth opened and closed twice before any sound came out. "Maya? What? How did you—" He gestured helplessly at the space where the portal had been, where reality had just casually torn itself open and delivered his study partner like some kind of cosmic delivery service. She was shaking, he realized. Not from cold, but from embarrassment so profound it radiated off her in waves. The patterns on her skin, he could see them now on her shoulders and arms where the blanket didn't quite cover, were pulsing faster, like a heartbeat made visible. "I need clothes," she managed, her accent thicker than usual, vowels rounded in ways that reminded him she wasn't from anywhere he could point to on a map. "Please, I need—" Yes, of course." River's body finally remembered how to move. He turned away to give her privacy, heard her small sound of relief, and started pulling open drawers. His hands landed on his favorite flannel, soft from 100 washes, and a pair of sweatpants with a drawstring. "Here, they'll be big, but—" He held them out behind him without looking, felt her take them with trembling fingers. The rustle of fabric seemed impossibly loud in the small space. River kept his eyes fixed on his bookshelf, counting spines, reciting titles in his head. Anything to give her a moment to collect herself. "Okay," Maya said finally, voice small. "You can turn around." She looked impossibly vulnerable, drowning in his clothes, the flannel hanging off one shoulder, sleeves rolled up multiple times to free her hands. Her blue skin stood in stark contrast to the faded red fabric. She'd pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself as small as possible on his futon. River grabbed his desk chair and sat down slowly, maintaining distance, keeping his posture open and non-threatening. "Are you hurt?" The question seemed to surprise her. Her dark eyes met his, searching for something. You're not going to ask how I got here? Or what I am?" "I figured you'd tell me when you're ready. Right now, I'm just worried about you. That looked intense." Something in Maya's expression crumbled. Her eyes went shiny with unshed tears, and she pressed her face against her knees. "The emergency recall. It malfunctioned. I was in my dorm, and then I was here." River waited, giving her space to continue. It's supposed to take us back to Thalassa Prime when there's danger, but the coordinates got scrambled somehow and the protocol defaulted to the place my subconscious considers safest. The person I think about when I'm scared. The implication hung in the air between them like a living thing. Me? River asked softly. Maya nodded against her knees, not looking at him. I didn't mean to invade your space like this. I didn't mean for you to see me like that. Among my people, materializing naked in someone's presence is... She took a shaky breath. It's the ultimate vulnerability, ultimate trust. Hey, River leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You didn't invade anything. Some kind of emergency system sent you here to keep you safe. That's not an invasion, Maya. That's just what was supposed to happen. She finally looked up at him, and the expression in her eyes made his chest ache. Wonder and fear and something else. Something that made the patterns on her skin pulse brighter for just a moment. You're being very kind about this, she whispered. You've always been kind to me, River said simply. Remember when I completely bombed that midterm and you stayed after study group for 3 hours helping me understand orbital mechanics? You could have just gone home, but you didn't. He smiled. I'm just returning the favor. Maya's life was watery, but genuine. This is slightly different from tutoring. Maybe, but the principle's the same. River stood up slowly. You want some tea? Or water? You must be... River. Maya's voice stopped him. When he looked back, she'd uncurled a little, the flannel shirt gaping enough to show the elegant line of her collarbone, the strange, beautiful patterns that seemed to move across her skin like living art. Her patterns flared bright enough to cast shadows on the wall, and this time, Maya didn't look away. The confession under moonlight. River made tea in his tiny kitchenette while Maya sat curled on the futon, his flannel shirt still hanging off her shoulder in a way that made him actively work to keep his eyes on the kettle. The rain had softened to a gentle patter, and through the window, clouds were beginning to break apart, revealing fragments of moonlight. My world is called Thalassa Prime, Maya said quietly as he handed her a mug. Her fingers wrapped around the ceramic, and he noticed how the warmth made the patterns on her hands glow softer, like bioluminescence in tropical waters. It's mostly ocean. The cities float or exist in underwater domes. We evolved in deep water, which is why... She gestured at herself with a self-deprecating smile. Why I look like this. River sat on the floor beside the futon, giving her space but staying close enough to talk without raising their voices. How long have you been here? On Earth? 8 months. Exchange program through the Interstellar Education Initiative. Most humans don't know it exists yet. Your governments are still deciding how to break the news that you're not alone in the universe. She sipped her tea, steam rising past her face. We wear holographic projectors usually, make us look human. Mine failed during the transport. Is that why you always wear long sleeves? Even in September when it was 90 degrees? Maya nodded, a flush of darker blue spreading across her cheeks again. I was always afraid someone would notice, that the hologram would glitch and people would see the real me. She paused, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. But you've seen me now. All of me. And you're still here. Where else would I be? Most people run or stare or ask invasive questions about my biology like I'm a specimen. Her dark eyes found his. You asked if I was hurt. That was the first thing you said. River felt heat creep up his neck. Seemed like the important question. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the rain and the quiet hum of his ancient refrigerator the only sounds. Maya set down her mug and hugged her knees again, but this time she was looking at him, really looking, like she was memorizing his face. The emergency recall system, she began carefully, it's supposed to be fail-safe. It reads your vital signs, detects danger, and immediately transports you to your registered home coordinates. She took a breath. But if those coordinates are corrupted or unreachable, it defaults to a different algorithm. It scans your recent memories, your emotional patterns, your subconscious associations,
and it sends you to the place, or the person that your mind has marked as safe. River's heart did something complicated in his chest. So it sent you here because when I'm anxious before exams, I think about Wednesday study groups. Because when I can't sleep, I remember the way you explain concepts, how patient you are. Because every time I feel alone on this strange planet, I think about the human boy with kind eyes who shares his notes and laughs at his own jokes and never once made me feel inferior for not understanding Earth customs. The moonlight streaming through the window caught in her hair, made the patterns on her skin shimmer like light through water. She looked ethereal and terrified and heartbreakingly vulnerable. "Maya," River breathed. "I didn't mean for you to know," she continued in a rush. "I was content just being in your orbit, just having those few hours a week where I felt like I belonged somewhere. But the system doesn't lie. It sent me to you because my subconscious thinks of you as home, and now you know, and I've ruined everything." River moved without thinking, shifting from the floor to sit beside her on the futon. "You haven't ruined anything. I materialized naked in your bed. I literally invaded your personal space in the most vulnerable way possible. Among my people, it's basically a declaration. It means," she pressed her hands to her face, "it means I trust you with everything I am. It means I want—" She cut herself off. "What do you want?" River asked softly. Maya lowered her hand slowly. In the moonlight, her eyes were impossibly deep, full of longing and fear. "I want to know what you feel like," she whispered. "I've wondered for months what human warmth feels like, what your hands would feel like on my skin, if you'd find me beautiful or strange or—" "Beautiful," River interrupted firmly. "Definitely beautiful." Her breath caught. The patterns on her skin began to pulse faster, brighter, a visible heartbeat. "You can't mean that!" "I've been sketching you in my lecture notes since September. Not in a creepy way, I swear. Just, you have these amazing cheekbones, and the way you concentrate when you're working through a problem, you do this thing where you tilt your head, and I just—" He ran a hand through his hair. "I thought you were gorgeous before I knew about the blue skin. This just makes you more yourself." Maya made a small sound, something between a laugh and a sob. "You're sketching me?" "Terrible sketches. I'm an engineer, not an artist." "Can I see them?" He hesitated, then stood and retrieved his quantum mechanics notebook from the desk. He flipped it open to a random page, equations on one side, and on the other, rough pencil drawings of Maya from various angles. Maya in profile. Maya laughing at something someone said. Maya with her hair tucked behind her ear, concentrating. She touched the paper with trembling fingers. "You see me like this?" "Yeah," River said quietly, sitting back down beside her. "Is that okay?" Instead of answering, Maya set down the notebook and turned to face him fully. The flannel shirt had slipped further off her shoulder, revealing more of the glowing patterns that decorated her skin like living art. "Among my people," she said carefully, "there are courting rituals, stages. You're supposed to spend months in formal meetings before any physical contact beyond hand-holding. It's very, very structured." "Okay," River said, not sure where she was going with this. "But I'm not on Talassa Prime anymore. And I've just accidentally declared myself to you in the most forward way possible by my culture standards. And you're sitting here telling me I'm beautiful and showing me sketches and making me tea, and I'm thinking—" She took a shaky breath. "I'm thinking I don't want to follow the old rules anymore." River's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. "What do you want instead?" Maya reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. Her fingertips brushed his cheek, and her touch was cool and soft and made something electric run down his spine. "You're so warm," she breathed. "You're not cold, just different warm, like water that's been sitting in moonlight." Maya laughed, the sound breaking with emotion, and suddenly they were closer, her forehead resting against his, sharing breath in the small space between them. "I've never done this," she admitted. "Never been this close to anyone." "We can stop whenever you want," River promised. "We don't have to." Maya kissed him. It was tentative and sweet, and tasted like chamomile tea. Her lips were softer than anything River had ever imagined, and when his hand came up to cup the back of her neck, she made a small sound of surprise and pleasure that went straight through him. They broke apart slowly, both breathing hard. Maya's patterns were pulsing in steady waves now, casting dancing light across the walls. That was... She started. Yeah, River agreed. She kissed him again, less tentative this time, her hands finding his shoulders, his chest, exploring with curious wonder. River let him set the pace, responding to her touches, her small sounds of discovery. When his fingers accidentally brushed the patterns on her collarbone, she gasped and arched into the touch. Sensitive? He asked. Very, Maya breathed. No one's ever touched them before. River traced the glowing lines with reverent fingertips, following them from her shoulder down her arm, watching her face for reactions. She was trembling again, but not from fear this time. Her eyes had gone dark and soft, her lips parted. Is this okay? He whispered. More than okay, she said, and pulled him down into another kiss.
Discovering each other. The moon had fully emerged from the clouds, painting River's small studio in silver light that mingled with the soft blue glow emanating from Maya's skin. They'd moved slowly, carefully, each touch a question and an answer. The flannel shirt had slipped further until Maya shrugged out of it entirely, and River's breath caught at the full side of her. The patterns weren't just on her arms and shoulders. They flowed across her entire body like waterways on a map, tracing the curves of her waist, the gentle swell of her hips, spiraling around her ribs. They moved with her breathing, with her heartbeat, growing brighter wherever River's hands wandered. "You're staring," Maya whispered, but there was no self-consciousness in her voice now, only wonder at being seen. "You're incredible," River breathed. He was propped on one elbow beside her on the futon, still fully clothed, while she lay bare before him, and somehow that felt right, letting her be vulnerable while he remained covered, keeping the power balance in her favor. "Can I?" Maya nodded, taking his hand and placing it over her heart. The patterns there pulsed against his palm, and he could feel her heartbeat racing beneath. "My people believe the soul lives here," she said softly, "in the patterns. They're unique to each person, like fingerprints. Showing them to someone is," she swallowed, "intimate." River traced the glowing lines with careful reverence, following them up to her collarbone, across her shoulders, down her arms. Everywhere he touched, the light intensified, like he was painting her with luminescence. Maya's breath grew ragged, her hands clenching in the sheets. "What does it feel like?" River asked. "Like lightning," Maya gasped. "Like every nerve ending is waking up. We don't usually let anyone touch our patterns until we're formally bonded." She laughed shakily. "I'm breaking every rule tonight." "We can stop," River offered, even though stopping felt like it might kill him. Maya's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. "Don't you dare stop." She pulled him down into a kiss that was deeper, more urgent than before. Her hands found the hem of his shirt and tugged, and River broke away long enough to pull it over his head. When their skin met, human warmth against the Lassen coolness, they both made sounds of surprise and pleasure. "Oh," Maya breathed, her hands spreading across his chest, exploring. "You feel like sunshine, like standing on the surface platforms back home." Her fingers traced his collarbones, his shoulders, learning the geography of him. "I used to watch you in study group and wonder what this would feel like." River kissed his jaw, his neck, felt her pulse jump beneath his lips. "And?" Maya said. "Better than wondering, so much better." They explored each other with the same careful focus they brought to quantum equations, methodical but passionate, each discovery leading to new questions. River learned that the patterns along her spine were especially sensitive, that kissing the point where her neck met her shoulder made her gasp his name, that her hair felt like cool silk between his fingers. Maya discovered that human skin had its own kind of warmth that had nothing to do with temperature, that River's breathing changed when she touched certain places, that she loved the sound of her name and his voice when it came out rough and wanting. "Can I?"
River's hand hovered over the pattern that curved along her ribs, disappearing beneath the waistband of his borrowed sweatpants. Maya nodded, lifting her hips to help him slide them off. She lay before him completely bare now, glowing like a constellation made flesh, and River had never seen anything more beautiful in his life. He kissed her hip bone, the curve of her waist, following the glowing patterns like a roadmap. Maya's hands tangled in his hair, her body arching and trembling beneath his attention. When he finally touched her, where she was already slick and wanting, her patterns exploded into brilliant light that filled the entire room. "River," she gasped, her name a prayer and a plea. "I've got you," he promised, working her carefully, watching her face for guidance. Her eyes had gone dark and unfocused, her lips parted in soundless pleasure, and the patterns were pulsing so fast now they looked like they were dancing across her skin. When she came apart beneath his touch, the light show was spectacular. Waves of luminescence cascading across her body, bright enough that River had to squint. She cried out his name, her body arching off the futon, and River held her through it, whispering soft reassurances against her shoulder. Maya came back to herself slowly, trembling and gasping. Her patterns were still glowing bright but steadying into slower pulses. She pulled him up into a fierce kiss, tasting her own pleasure on his lips. "Your turn," she breathed, and her hands moved to his belt with determined curiosity. River helped her, kicking off his jeans and boxers, and then they were both bare in the moonlight and the glow of her skin. Maya's eyes went wide taking him in, her hands exploring with wonder, and when she wrapped her fingers around him, River groaned into her neck. "Show me what you like," Maya whispered. River guided her hand, showed her rhythm and pressure, and Maya learned fast, focused and thorough, and absolutely devastating. When he got close, he warned her, but she didn't pull away. She watched his face with dark, intent eyes as he fell apart in her hands, and the wonder in her expression made it even more intense. They lay tangled together afterwards, catching their breath, River's hand tracing lazy patterns on Maya's hip while her head rested on his chest. Her glow had softened to something warm and intimate, like candlelight. "That was—" Maya started. "Yeah," River agreed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She tilted her head up to look at him, her expression serious. "Among my people, what we just did, it's not casual. The pattern touching, She gestured vaguely. "It means something. It creates a connection." "What kind of connection?" Maya's hand found his, threading their fingers together. Where their palms met, her patterns seemed to reach toward his skin, creating faint tracings of light across his hand. "The beginning of a soul bond," she said quietly. "If we continue, if we complete the connection, the patterns will mark you permanently. You'd carry part of me with you forever." River's heart clenched. "And I'd be stuck with you?" "Not stuck," Maya said firmly. "Chosen. Choosing. There's a difference." She searched his face. "But you should know what you're agreeing to before we go any further. This isn't just one night for my people. This is everything." River thought about his tiny studio apartment, his engineering degree, his ordinary human life. Then he thought about Maya, brilliant, beautiful Maya who'd trusted him with her most vulnerable self, who'd literally been delivered to him by a universe that somehow knew they belonged together. "What if I want everything?" he asked softly. Maya's breath caught, her patterns flaring bright. "Do you mean that?" Instead of answering with words, River kissed her deeply, rolling them so she was under him again, her legs wrapping around his waist. "Show me," he breathed against her lips. "Show me how to complete the bond."
The mark of belonging. Maya's eyes widened, her patterns pulsing with emotion, fear and desire and overwhelming hope tangled together. "Are you certain?" she whispered, her hands framing River's face. "Once it's done, it can't be undone. You'll be marked as mine, and I as yours. Even if we're separated by galaxies, we'll always feel each other."
River pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. She smelled like ocean air and ozone and something sweet he couldn't name. I've never been more certain of anything. Maya's kiss was desperate and tender all at once, her body arching up to meet his. "Then let me show you," she breathed. She guided his hand to the brightest pattern on her chest, directly over her heart. "You have to touch here while we're joined. The connection forms when both hearts are racing together, when we're as close as two people can be." River's hand trembled slightly as he kept it pressed over her heart, feeling the rapid flutter beneath his palm. With his other hand, he reached between them, positioning himself carefully. "Tell me if anything hurts." "It won't hurt," Maya promised. "Not this. Never this." He entered her slowly, giving her time to adjust, and the sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced. She was cool and slick and perfect, her body welcoming him with a gentle pulse that matched the rhythm of her blowing patterns. Maya's head fell back, her mouth opening in a silent cry of pleasure, and her patterns exploded into brilliant light that seemed to pour directly into his skin where his palm rested over her heart. "Oh, God," River gasped, because he could feel it, something flowing between them, warm and electric and utterly right. It was like their heartbeats were synchronizing, like he could sense her pleasure as well as his own. "Don't stop," Maya pleaded, her legs tightening around him. "Don't stop, please." River began to move, slow and deep, watching her face for every reaction. Her patterns were going wild now, cascading across her skin in waves that seemed to pulse in time with his thrusts. Where his hand pressed over her heart, he could feel heat building, could see faint luminescent lines beginning to trace themselves onto his palm. Maya's hands clutched at his shoulders, his back, her nails leaving pleasant pressure. "I can feel you," she gasped. "Inside my mind, I can feel what you're feeling." "What am I feeling?" River asked, his voice rough as he tried to maintain control. "Safe," Maya breathed, her eyes meeting his with devastating intensity. "Loved, like you found something you didn't know you were looking for." Tears slipped down her temples. "Like I'm precious." "You are," River promised, kissing away her tears. "You're everything." He felt the exact moment the bond clicked into place. It was like a circuit completing, a puzzle piece sliding home. Suddenly he could sense Maya's emotions as clearly as his own, her pleasure, her wonder, her overwhelming love crashing into him like a tidal wave. His hand over her heart began to burn, not painfully, but with intense heat as the patterns permanently etched themselves into his skin. Maya cried out his name, her body tightening around him, and River felt her climax as if it were his own, the cascading pleasure, the way every nerve ending lit up, the emotional release of finally being completely known by another person. Her patterns detonated into supernova bright light that painted the entire room blue-white, and River followed her over the edge, burying his face in her neck as his own release tore through him. The light show continued even as they came down, Maya's patterns pulsing in slower, satisfied waves. River lifted his head to look at her, and she was crying, happy tears that she wiped away with trembling fingers. "Let me see," she whispered, reaching for his hand. River pulled back carefully, already missing the closeness, and held up his palm. Delicate, silver-blue lines now traced across his skin in the exact pattern that marked Maya's heart, swirls and waves that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. It looked like he dipped his hand in liquid starlight. "Beautiful," Maya breathed, bringing his marked palm to her lips. She kissed it reverently, then pressed it back over her heart. "You're marked as mine now. Anyone from my world who sees this will know you're bonded." River traced the patterns on her chest with his other hand, marveling at how they seemed slightly dimmer now, as if he'd transferred some of her light to him. "And you? How are you marked?" Maya guided his hand to her left shoulder, where a new pattern had appeared, more angular than her natural ones, with straight lines and geometric shapes mixed in with the flowing curves. "Human patterns," she explained with a soft laugh. "The bond takes something from both of us and weaves it together. I carry your mark now just as you carry mine." They lay tangled together, both still trembling from the intensity of what they'd shared. River could feel Maya's contentment through the bond, her happiness like warm honey flowing through his chest. It was strange and wonderful and slightly overwhelming. "Can you feel me too?" he asked. Maya nodded, her smile radiant. "You're wondering if this is real, if I'll regret it in the morning, if you're dreaming." She cupped his face gently. "It's real, River. I'll never regret you. And if this is a dream, I never want to wake up." River kissed her slowly, deeply, pouring everything he felt into it. Through the bond, he felt her receiving it, his certainty, his growing love, his absolute commitment to figuring out whatever complicated situation they'd just created. "What happens now?" he asked when they finally broke apart. "You said you have to go back eventually." Maya's joy dimmed slightly, worry creeping in. "The recall system will have registered my location by now. My people will know I'm here, on Earth, in this specific building. They'll send someone to retrieve me before sunrise. We can't risk exposure to human authorities." "So we have until dawn," River said, trying not to let the grief show. He failed. Maya felt it anyway through the bond, and her own sadness echoed back to him. "I'm not leaving forever," she promised fiercely. "The bond won't let me. I'll fight every regulation, every protocol. I'll find a way back to you." "What if they won't let you?" River couldn't help asking. Maya's patterns flared with determination. "Then I'll become the first Thalassan in history to go rogue for love." She kissed him firmly. "You're mine now, River Chen, marked and bonded, and I protect what's mine." The possessiveness in her voice should have scared him. Instead, it made something warm bloom in his chest. "And you're mine," he said back. "Always," Maya promised. They made love twice more before exhaustion claimed them. Slower the second time, tender and exploratory, learning how the bond enhanced every sensation. The third time was desperate and clinging, both of them aware that dawn was approaching too quickly. Each time the connection between them deepened, until River couldn't tell where his emotions ended and Maya's began. As they lay wrapped around each other in the pre-dawn darkness, Maya's glow dimmed to barely more than moonlight. River traced the new patterns on her shoulder, his mark on her, and marveled at how completely his life had changed in one impossible night. "No regrets?" River whispered. She smiled against his chest, her breathing evening out as she drifted toward sleep. River held her close, committing every detail to memory. The weight of her in his arms, the cool silk of her skin, the way her patterns pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Through the window, the sky was just beginning to lighten at the edges. Their stolen night was almost over, but the bond hummed steadily between them, a promise that this wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning. Tomorrow, and forever. The knock came at 5:47 a.m., sharp and authoritative. Maya jerked awake in River's arms, her patterns flaring bright with alarm before she remembered where she was. Through the bond, River felt her spike of fear and forced himself to project calm, even though his own heart was racing. "They're here," Maya whispered, sitting up. She was still wearing nothing but the marks of their bonding, and River reluctantly handed her his flannel shirt again. "Who's here exactly?" River asked, pulling on his jeans. "Probably a recovery team, maybe a cultural liaison officer." Maya ran her hands through her tangled hair, trying to make herself presentable. "They're going to be very unhappy about the malfunction, even more unhappy about—" She gestured between them, at the glowing marks that proved what they'd done. The knock came again, more insistent. A voice called through the door in a language that sounded like water over stones, beautiful and incomprehensible. Maya responded in the same language, her tone respectful but firm. Then she switched to English. "We need a moment, please." River crossed to her, cupping her face gently. Through the bond, he could feel her terror at being separated from him. "Hey, look at me." When her dark eyes met his, he smiled. "Whatever happens, we're bonded now, right? They can't undo that?" "No," Maya confirmed, "but they can make it very difficult for us to be together. They can send me home permanently, restrict my travel, revoke my visa. Then we'll figure it out," River interrupted. "You said the bond works across galaxies, so worst case scenario, we'll
We'll just have to wait a little longer to be in the same room again." He pressed his marked palm over her heart, feeling the steady pulse beneath. "But they can't take this away from us." Maya's eyes filled with tears even as she smiled. "How are you so calm?" "I'm not," River admitted. "I'm terrified, but I'm also sure. About you. About us." He kissed her softly. "Go deal with your people. I'll be right here." The person on the other side of the door turned out to be two people. A tall woman with deep purple skin and silver hair pulled into a severe bun, and a shorter man with lighter lavender skin and kind eyes. Both wore matching black uniforms with strange insignias that seemed to shimmer and change. They looked at Maya with expressions River couldn't quite read. Then their eyes dropped to her shoulder where his geometric mark stood out against her natural patterns. The woman spoke in rapid Thalassan, her tone sharp. Maya responded with equal fire, gesturing between herself and River. The man looked between them with something like sympathy, then said something quieter that made the woman's expression soften slightly. "What are they saying?" River asked. Maya turned to him, exhaustion and determination warring on her face. "Commander Valara wants to know how I could be so reckless as to bond with a human without proper authorization. I told her the recall system sent me here, that it was the universe's choice, not just mine." She glanced at the man. "Scholar Rin is arguing that soul bonds are sacred and can't be contested, even if they're inconvenient." Commander Valara spoke again, this time in accented English. "The bond is recognized, but you, Maya Exelfen, are still a student under Thalassan jurisdiction. You will return with us for review." "And then?" Maya challenged. "That depends on the Council's ruling." Valara's gaze shifted to River, assessing. "You, human, do you understand what you've done? The bond will cause you pain when you are separated. You will feel her emotions, her distress, possibly for years before you are allowed to reunite. Most humans can't handle such connection." River stepped forward, holding up his marked palm. "Most humans don't get chosen by someone like Maya. I'll handle whatever I need to handle." Scholar Rin smiled slightly. "Spoken like someone already soul-deep in it?" He pulled out a small device from his pocket, something that looked like a smooth river stone but glowed with internal light. He offered it to Maya, who took it with shaking hands. "Thank you, Scholar." "You have 10 minutes, Valara said, her tone softening fractionally. "Say your goodbyes." The two Thalassans stepped into the hallway, giving them privacy. Maya immediately threw herself into River's arms, and he held her tight, feeling her tears soaking into his shirt. "I don't want to go," she whispered. "I know, but you have to." River pulled back to look at her. "Go face your council, argue your case, and then come back to me." "What if they won't let me return for months? Years?" River took the resonator from her hand and pressed it into her palm, then covered it with his own marked hand. "Then we'll talk every day through this, and I'll count down every single day until I can hold you again." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "You're worth waiting for, Maya Exelfen." Through the bod, he felt her love for him like a physical force, so strong it nearly knocked him over. She kissed him fiercely, desperately, trying to memorize him through touch. "I'll fight for us," she promised against his lips. "I make them understand." "I know you will." Maya pulled something from her pocket, a small vial of liquid that glowed the same blue as her patterns. "My essence," she explained. "A few drops of this in water, and you'll be able to dream walk with me. It's not the same as being together, but we can meet in our sleep." River took the vial carefully, understanding the significance of the gift. "Thank you." "And this." Maya reached up and carefully pulled a single strand of her midnight hair, wincing slightly. But this strand glowed brighter than the rest, pulsing with light. "Hair from over my heart. It carries the strongest connection to the bond. If you're ever in danger, break it. I'll feel it instantly, and I'll find a way to reach you." River wound the glowing strand around his wrist like a bracelet, feeling it warm against his skin. "I'll guard it with my life." They spent their remaining minutes in silence, foreheads pressed together, hands clasped, letting the bond speak for them. River felt Maya's determination, her love, her absolute commitment to returning, and he sent back his own certainty, his patience, his unwavering faith in what they'd created. When Commander Valara knocked again, Maya straightened her spine and stepped back. The flannel shirt hung off her frame, his sweatpants rolled at the ankles, and she looked heartbreakingly young and impossibly brave. "I love you," River said, the words feeling both inadequate and absolutely necessary. Maya's smile was radiant, despite her tears. "I love you too. Wait for me?" "Every day," River promised. "Starting now." Maya walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Her patterns were glowing steady and strong, no longer the shy flickering from before. "This is not goodbye, River Chen. This is see you soon." "See you soon, Maya Exelfen." She slipped out the door with the two Thalossan officers. River stood in his empty studio apartment, feeling her moving away through the bond, down the stairs, out to the street, into some kind of vehicle he couldn't see. The distance made the connection stretch, but not break, like a rubber band pulled taut. Just before she moved out of range, he felt her send one last pulse of love through the bond, and he sent one back. Then the sensation dimmed to a quiet hum, a constant awareness of her existence somewhere in the world. River looked at his marked palm, at the glowing strand around his wrist, at the vial of her essence on his desk. The eastern sky was turning pink and gold with sunrise, painting his small space in warm light that seemed dimmer without Maya's glow to complement it. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The council meets in 3 days. I'll message when I can. Dream with me tonight? -M." River smiled, exhaustion and hope warring in his chest. He typed back, "Every night until you come home." 3 dots appeared. Then, home. "I like that word. Your apartment felt more like home in one night than my dorm has in 8 months. Then that's what it'll be. Home base. Waiting for its astronaut to return from a long mission. She love you, my human. I love you too, my beautiful alien." River set down his phone and looked around his studio apartment. Still cramped, still cluttered with textbooks, but fundamentally transformed. Maya had materialized in his bed by accident and carved out a permanent space in his life on purpose. He picked up the vial of her essence, held it up to the morning light. 3 drops in water, she'd said. He could dreamwalk with her tonight. Outside, the campus was beginning to wake up. Birds singing, cars starting, the distant sound of someone's alarm going off. River's quantum mechanics textbook was still open on his desk. The problem he'd been solving last night was now completely irrelevant. He had an exam in 2 days that he hadn't studied for. He had a bonded partner who was currently being transported to face judgment from her people. He had glowing marks on his hand that proved the universe occasionally intervened in beautiful, impossible ways. River closed his textbook, climbed back onto his futon that still smelled like ocean air and ozone, and clutched the glowing strand of hair against his chest. Through the bond, he could feel Maya doing the same somewhere across the city, holding on to something of his, feeling his presence even in absence. "See you in my dreams," River whispered to the empty room. And through the bond, impossibly, he felt Maya smile,